Without a doubt, it's our favorite time of year on the eve of the ACC tournament getting started for the Duke Blue Devils, and then a run through the NCAA tournament. Hopefully, we've got a national championship in sight for this Duke basketball team, and I think we should be pretty good, feeling pretty good about how Duke's chances are going into March Madness.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you for being here with us today on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. And today we're talking about the Duke men's basketball team getting set to play in Charlotte in the ACC tournament and then turning it around and making a run through the NCAA tournament. Hopefully we've got 9 games left on the schedule for this Duke basketball team, the ACC regular season champs. And who better to talk about this with than our good pal Isaac Trotter, who's back on the podcast with us here today. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Do us a favor and leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Spread the word about this podcast as we want to continue to grow that audience. And also remember that you can watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Hello to our YouTube audience. Shout out to all those everydayers out there. We love seeing you comment and interact with us throughout the shows on YouTube, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That support means so much to us. So without further ado, we'll bring Isaac Trotter from 247 Sports and CBS Sports onto the program with us here today, talking about a Duke basketball team that's ACC champions. They did it, Isaac. They're 19-1 in conference play, the best mark through 20 games in the history of the conference. Yes, we can have discussions about how down the league was, but at a certain point, you had to go out there and win those games. Hope you're doing well, man, and it's kind of fun to look at this regular season for Duke in the rearview mirror now at this point.
Yeah, non-conference play is season 1, conference play is season 2, and now we head into season 3, which is where kind of the rubber meets the road. But yeah, I mean, I would say they've checked off all of the boxes that you kind of asked from them in the ACC regular season, and what a way to cap that off too against Carolina. Duke, I think they needed to have a game where they saw some adversity for a little bit. They certainly got that, and then I think we learned a little bit about the morale of this group and just the character and toughness about this team, to be able to take really, really good shots and, go into a raucous road environment against a team that was honestly, I think, playing like it was their Super Bowl, and find a way to grind out a 13-point win.
In some ways, a week of adversity for the Duke team, because we're learning in real time about Jay Lucas and that he's going to head off to Miami, and then he's only going to be there for this UNC game before he's got to go start those responsibilities. What does that look like for this Duke team? And then trying to factor in Malik Brown returning from injury and just a couple of other things. Oh, by the way, it's, their college basketball's finest rivalry. You're going on the road to their place. Everybody wants to see this Duke team lose in a situation like this. And you're right. They were really tested there to open up the second half, and then finally showed a whole lot of resolve to get back into it. Cooper Flagg had never had 3 first-half fouls. That was something weird and kind of different that we were having to watch as that game played out.
It was. And, as I'm kind of watching it too, it was a lot of North Carolina making dribble jumpers, right? Like it was a lot of isolation pull-up jumpers. And I'm watching it going, I don't think this is sustainable, but they just keep making them. RJ Davis gets feeling hot, feeling good about themselves. And then I think Duke just buckled down and continued just to stick with the process. And Duke's defense forces the most isolation possessions in college basketball this year. Like, you're not really able to do much other than just like try to play one-on-one ball against them because of their terrific switching and what they're doing on the back end of that defense. And they did a great job of continuing to force those tough contested jumpers. Anytime they missed, it was a run out. And Duke in transition, when they're running, I think that's the best version of them. And those long shots led to long rebounds, did a good job on the boards for the most part in that second half, and made North Carolina pay in transition. So, yeah, it was, I think there's definitely little subplots of that game. I think Malik Brown knocking down some of those shots just kind of shows you just the depth of that front court. I thought Caleb Foster gave really good minutes defensively as well on RJ Davis, but just having that confidence to come in cold and give them a couple big buckets. This team's deep. This team is really, really deep. And I think we've starting to see like guys are starting to really come into their own from a role development and understanding what my job is. and how I can impact winning. It doesn't feel like there's a ton of egos on this group, and that's kind of what you need when you're going to go up against some really old veteran teams in the NCAA tournament if you want to win a title.
Yeah, Knueppel led Duke in scoring in this game with those 17 points, and with the 19-1 record, mentioned again, we had North Carolina a season ago win the league with the 17-3 record. That was the best mark anybody had ever had through a 20-game schedule, and now Duke has surpassed that. Even Louisville and Clemson this season surpassed that as well. The context of this, how do we I'm curious what we're going to remember 5, 10, 15 years from now. I almost feel like it will kind of be forgotten a little bit, how down a bit of the league was, because you're just going to see the end result that Duke had this incredible record going through the regular season. And then all the metrics that you're alluding to, Duke is historically good in some sense, right? And so at a certain point, it's hard to kind of put how much stock needs to be said about the level of competition within the ACC this year.
Yeah, it's a fascinating, nuanced conversation, because I also think it's that we have so many chapters in this book still left to be played, and I think that like March is going to have a big time say on how we remember this team, because I think you kind of if you're kind of looking at this group, like Auburn had a terrific season last year, and it kind of like didn't matter when you lose to Yale. Like you kind of need, like, it feels like this last little stretch here could really develop the legacy of this group. And I think that even starts in the ACC tournament, which we'll see what Duke is like legacy wise. Those teams that can win the league, win the conference tournament, and then make a run, like that's a pretty rarefied air. But yeah, historically, in the internet era, this is the second best team of all time. That's crazy to me. Just absolutely crazy to me. But I think it's a sign of like this process is working. And I don't want to make it all about math, but I'm a numbers guy like that, right? That stuff. And I think Duke has done a really nice job this year of winning the shot volume game and winning the shot chart game. The shot volume game is what I mean by that. Like they win the turnover battle constantly, and they win the battle on the glass. So they're taking more shots than you almost on a nightly basis. And then the shot chart game is like, we get shots at the rim and we get open threes. Conversely, you are forced to take off the dribble 2-point jumpers. And that is where I think John Char's done a really nice job of melding, the both sides of this ball. Like usually look at it like Houston, like they're really good at the shot volume game, but they lose the shot chart game. Very few teams are good at both of these aspects. Duke is a historical team because they are excellent in two areas of the game, and they're kind of winning the math on like twice. It's like math squared to win this math.
And to your point, now we look at the ACC tournament for this Duke basketball team and see what kind of a run they can put forward there with the NCAA tournament to follow shortly after that. We'll go ahead and we'll take our first break here on today's show and continue our conversation with Isaac Trotter here in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Factor. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options, over 8 dietary preferences every single week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, plus Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how much Factor can take the stress out of meal planning. The convenience is just unbeatable. No prep, no mess. And it's just great food that you can have so quickly. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege 50 off. And use code LOCKEDONCollege 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCollege 50 off. LOCKEDONCollege 50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factor Meals is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, let's keep this going. We're talking Duke basketball, of course, and a Duke team that's coming off a regular season ACC championship. I'm so fascinated by this discussion that I feel like it's had so frequently each and every year, and I know that you're well aware of it in the college basketball world, Isaac, but I feel like so many people are always talking, is it okay just to go ahead and lose in the ACC tournament or your conference tournament, not put much pressure on your bodies going through this game after game after game? Should we keep playing our best basketball to go down as one of the best and try to win anything possible and everything that you can that's on the table there? I think we've seen it work for both scenarios there. this is what comes around every single season, man, isn't it?
It's a really funny conversation because I kind of think that coaches use it to their advantage, to fit this narrative based on the results of the past. Yeah. Like, it's like, all right, if we won the tournament and then we'd make it to the Sweet 16, it's because we really found our groove in the ACC tournament and just playing at a high level. If we win the ACC tournament and lose early, it's, oh, well, we were definitely tired. So, like, I think that, like, that type of narrative is something that can be, massaged. But, I think for these guys, like, playing 3 games in 3 days with a team this deep, I don't think that's that big of a deal. And just, I think there's something to just like playing who's in front of you, and every game is the same, and we are a war path, and it doesn't matter who's in front of us for the next 40 minutes. We're going out to dominate. And, maybe we lose, and it is what it is because somebody shoots 13 for 20 from 3 or 15 for 23 from 3, big deal. But that type of mentality of showing up night in and night out, like we're the same type of way, I think is important. And I think these guys take this seriously. Like the NBA is going to come soon, and you're going to play 82 regular season games. Say you play 70, and then you're going to go in the playoffs, right? Like, you're going to play a lot of basketball. I think you can tee it up for 40 college games. Sure. I think you can. And so, like, I think that these guys will take it totally seriously. And at the end of the day, whatever narrative best suits it, I'm sure coaches will play some revisionist history with how the conference tournaments go.
Yeah, whatever it takes to get your team motivated at the end of it. And ultimately for the Duke team, if it results in winning the national championship, that's still the big goal that they're trying to chase down. But today does kind of start that ACC tournament journey for the Blue Devils. We saw a few games play out there in Charlotte yesterday. A little bit later, we will see Georgia Tech and Virginia tip it off, and the winner gets the opportunity to play Duke. And then following that, you've got North Carolina and Notre Dame, that winner taking on Wake Forest, and they would match up with the Duke game. So just kind of looking at that pot of teams, if you will, and kind of the road ahead potentially for Duke to even make it back to an ACC tournament championship game. What does this look like to you in your eyes?
I think for my preference, I don't think I would want to play Georgia Tech. I think I'd rather sign up for Virginia than Georgia Tech, just because we've seen Georgia Tech's talent at times. They can play up a bit. Now, we'll see if Javian McCollum can get back and get healthy. Yeah. If he's still out, I just don't see them a way to beat Duke. But, Baden Ongo is a really good player. Like, they have good talent there. Nate George is decent. Like, we've seen them also play up at times under Damon Stoudemire. Yep. So maybe that group would probably, if you're kind of a rooting interest, I think I'd probably pick Virginia over Tech. And that next game is weird. I think Notre Dame actually matches up pretty well with Carolina. And I kind of wonder inwardly if, like I said earlier, like Saturday was Carolina's Super Bowl. Is there any letdown spot here where it's just like, all right, like we needed that one so bad. We played well. We still lost by double figures. How much more do we have left in the tank 3 days later against Notre Dame? I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame wins that game. And maybe that ages poorly. But, yeah, I think if you're Duke, I don't know if I want to see Wake Forest again. Honestly, yeah. I know that how it went, that second game was not pretty for Wake. But Wake, like, I feel like they just on paper, they do match up decently well with Duke because they have a 4-man in Trayvon Spillers who can guard Flagg a little bit. Yep. They have that rim protector in Efton Reed. They're pretty physical. Their guards are big and physical, which you kind of need against Duke. If you don't have them, like, good luck and best wishes. And Wake has that. And they have 2 guards that can make those tough shots that Duke tries to force in isolation in Cam Hildreth and Hunter Salas. So, and we've seen, like, very few teams have put Duke, a big run on Duke. Wake Forest is one of those few teams on the road in that first matchup. So I think if you're from a Duke fan, like interest-wise, I think Duke's going to be a heavy favorite, whoever they play. But I would prefer not to see Wake Forest in the semifinals if I most possibly could. And honestly, I don't think Duke would hate to have to play Carolina again that third time and just stick it to them one more time. That, like, you're going to get another double-digit L from us on a neutral floor.
Without a doubt, because so many, Wake and North Carolina really fighting for their tournament lives and have got to find a way to put together a really big win. From that perspective, say Duke does go down to a team like Georgia Tech, and then they're kind of waiting for Selection Sunday to come around, and the still ultimate goal of winning national championship is still out there on the table. Have they done enough to still be a 1 seed in your eyes, or how does that math kind of play out for the Blue Devils right now?
Yeah, I think they're pretty much locked and loaded into a 1. I think there may be some still conversation about who the number 1 overall seed could be. Like, could they potentially jump Auburn in that pecking order? That's like the nuanced thing. I'm fascinated to see what the committee does, because Auburn's resume metrics are better than Duke's. Now, part of that is just the SEC. They got to play more quad 1 games, conference play, all of those things. Like, the resume metrics favor Auburn in a historic way. The predictive metrics favor Duke. Like, KenPom has them number 1, like all of those different things. So I'm curious to see kind of which side of the aisle the committee chooses for that thing. I just, even with a loss in this tournament, what Duke's resume is right now, like, it's just too good to not be a 1. I think they're pretty much locked into a 1 seed. Now, I think they would like to stay in the East.
Yeah.
And that is continuing to win so that you can get in the East, I think would be a massive, massive priority.
Yeah, we'll see how it all comes together. And certainly for the Duke team, it starts tomorrow in that ACC tournament. And then come Sunday, we'll have the Selection Sunday show come to be and see how Duke is able to make things happen from there. This season, Duke, of course, has been led by the play of Cooper Flagg, who just continues a historic run through college basketball this season. We'll talk about that and wrap up our conversation with Isaac Trotter on the final side of this break. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. That's right, this message from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes are waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with the TurboTax expert who could do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries, none of that. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. TurboTax is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, here we go. We're talking Duke basketball heading into the postseason, heading into March, and we've seen some regular season awards come out this week. To no surprise at all, Cooper Flagg is the ACC Freshman of the Year and the ACC Player of the Year. And looking at just the moments he had night after night after night playing in his lone college basketball season, truly unforgettable in so many ways. Now that you kind of look back on it and knowing we could still have these big Cooper Flagg moments that we all remember from March Madness, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I knew he had a lot of hype. I did the story on him back in the day, like when he was coming out of Maine, and just like finding Flagg, and you just hear all these different stories of just how he's risen up through the ranks. And then just to see him be better than what we expected is really cool. It's really cool. And he's super competitive. I think he plays the game kind of the way that it's easy to like the way he plays. Like, he just plays hard. He plays defense. He's pretty unselfish. Even times I think he sacrificed some of his own personal numbers to get other guys the ball in spots, and just a historic season. You look on KenPom in the Player of the Year race on there. This is the best individual season that KenPom's site has ever tracked since 2011.
Crazy.
It's crazy. And just like, it's the rebounding, it's the playmaking, it's the defense, it's the offensive efficiency. The threes have started to fall. It's special. It's special stuff. And I'm still completely flummoxed by the fact that he did not get Defensive Player of the Year too in ACC. Like, what in the world are we doing? And that's coming from somebody that I like, Chucky Hepburn. I think Chucky Hepburn's a terrific defensive player, but from my eye, it was pretty clearly Cooper Flagg was the most impactful defender on that end.
So when we look at the kind of National Player of the Year race that everybody's talking about here between Cooper Flagg and Janai Broome, obviously this audience is massively in favor and in support of Cooper Flagg. When they're having those conversations around the television, watching these tournament games with friends and family, is that the easy thing to point to? The KenPom metrics and everything he was able to do? Or what's kind of the swaying argument people should be throwing out there in Flagg's favor?
That's the one I look at. That's the one that I care about. I wrote about that on my awards kind of a week before the awards came out, and I had Cooper as my National Player of the Year. just because of that. Like, it's just hard for me to overlook that. And, that's not a shot at Johni Broome at all. What an unbelievable season he had. And I think it says a lot about college basketball that we have a kid from Maine who was like this can't miss ballyhooed prospect going up against another guy for the player of the year race who started his career at Morehead State, was 6'8" and 200 pounds. Yeah. Like that's cool. That's the cool part of college basketball. But yeah, for me, like, I don't like the, Jeff Goodman and the Field of 68. They do good stuff over there, but they did the co-player of the year and gave it to both Broome and Flagg. And I kind of understood it a little bit, like there's a case, but I like to pick one. And for me, I picked Flagg. And the Ken Pom player of the year race is just something that I cannot overlook. And, I also think that, like, look at the game logs. Like, how many clunkers has Cooper had? It just doesn't feel like it. And, I think some people, like, think of some of the turnovers and those late game scenarios early in non-conference play as some of their, like, lasting memories of Cooper, but that's just not true. Like, he's been terrific this season. And he's my pick for National Player of the Year. And if you want to go Flagg over Broome, like, I think there's a lot of evidence to support that. If you want to go Broome over Flagg with the argument of, like, the tougher conference, I guess I get that a little bit. But for me, head-to-head wise, like, I'm going to pick with Cooper. I'm riding with Cooper this time.
Yeah, we love to hear that for sure. So we'll see if he's able to rack up more and more National Player of the Year awards, what that looks like for him. Certainly going to get All-American recognition and that sort of thing. When you look back at the freshman season of the likes of Con Knueppel, who earns a spot on All-ACC second team, really felt like he had a case to be first team in that regard as well. How was Con Knueppel's season remembered at this point?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't follow recruiting as closely as some of our recruiting guys at 24/7, like Eric Bossi or Travis Branham, who've been watching these guys for years and years. But, the stuff you hear about Con, and it's just like, he's just a scorer. Like, we weren't sure what he was going to be defensively. Like, I think he's going to make shots off the ball. Let's see what else he can do. I think he's maybe the fourth leading scorer on this team. Like that, those are kind of like my thoughts percolating on him in the preseason.
Yeah.
And like, he's just kind of blown all of those expectations out of the way. Like, the way he plays off of 2 feet is super impressive. He's one of the most efficient scorers in college basketball, finishes with the 5th highest offensive rating in the ACC. The jumper from 3 was dialed. The mid-range jumper was nice. Getting to the free throw line a ton. Like, 57% on 2s, 42% on 3s, 90% at the free throw line. We're talking about like an almost historic efficiency type of season from Con. And just and we talk all things offensively. Like, defensively, he was awesome this year. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And so, like, that's like pretty cool to see some of his internal development. I think he is a complete stud. And I'm very, very excited to see kind of what he does in March, because, there's a lot of teams at the top of the pecking order that have small guards. Yeah. And I think Con is going to be a real X factor for Duke, where his ability to go find those guards and make them pay. Like, I think about Florida. When you play Florida, like, he's probably going to get chances to go at Walter Clayton, who's like 6'3". You play Tennessee, maybe you get, Zakai Ziegler isolated on the Con, and Con can rise over him, and he's only 5'11". Texas Tech, one of the best teams in America, like, small guards. So I think Con is going to have a huge say on how deep Duke can go, just because he's a matchup nightmare for some of these teams with small guards that are kind of littered all across the top 10 in college basketball.
Yeah, I go back to kind of those early season matchups that Duke had with Kansas and Kentucky that don't necessarily go in Duke's favor. And in one of those games, Con Knueppel finishes 0 for 8 from three-point range and whatnot. But then you just go back to this Saturday to see the progression of a player throughout his freshman season. And Con Knueppel is leading the way for Duke and carrying the load when Cooper Flagg is kind of over there sidelined with injuries. And that's and just to see where he was at point A to begin the year to where he is now. Really, really impressive putting that together.
And he comes off those pin downs ready to roll. Yeah. Like, and even when he was like missing like some of those shots, I didn't feel like he was playing without a lot of confidence. Like, sure. He has definitely stayed true to the process. And sometimes for shooters, jumpers are not going to go in, but you just have to keep taking them. And credit to him for continuing to do that and not letting his defense or his offense impact his defense as well along the way. So just so impressed with him. He is, I didn't have him on my first team all ACC. Maybe that I should have. For me, I went with Shefflin from Clemson, along with Chase Hunter and Cooper Flagg and Maxime Reynow, and I think that's 5. Maybe I'm missing one, but yeah, those would be my 5 that I had, and I had Con as like the first one off. Him and Hunter Salas were both like the first 2 off, but no question, he had a first team all ACC caliber season. Wouldn't have doubted anybody if they picked it with those efficiency splits.
Yeah, some of these leagues help you out a little bit because they recognize more than just the 5. We see some
14.
leagues that, they're like, these are 14 second teamers. I'm like, I don't know how that works, but yeah. Okay, so last thing for you here, Isaac, before we get out of here, just simply put, Duke getting set for March Madness, getting set for the big dance here. Why can this Duke team win it all? What's going to be kind of the path or recipe for them to be able to do that?
I think the reason they can win it all is, like I talked about, that math advantage that they're winning, math squared, and the ability to force teams to take tough shots defensively. They just don't have a lot of flaws. I just don't know how you attack Duke very well outside of like isolation brilliance. And you're having to, it's so funny because it's like when Duke has some of their best players or like their top guys on the floor, it's like you're picking between Cooper Flagg, who I think is one of the generational defensive prospects, Zion James, who is one of the best defensive players in the portal, Knueppel, who, like I talked about earlier, has really ramped up his defensive game.
His own, yep.
Yeah. If Malik Brown's on the floor, that's an all ACC type of defender. Cayman Malawach, who is like a legit, like just alpha dog defensively. It's like, who do you go after? You want to play one-on-one basketball, but like, who are you picking? And Tyrese Proctor, who is an outstanding individual defender as well. It's like, it's hard. And so I think for me, like, I think there's going to be some questions about if that team that's this young can make, a run in an old tournament. Like, you're going to hear that narrative. I just don't care about that stuff because on the floor, they create good shots and they force tough ones and they're really big. And that type of team that is pretty moldable is really, really helpful. And, I'm not concerned about the no point guard stuff like either. Like I just look at the quality of shot that they create. And that's like the trump card for me. So, we'll see what the draw is. I think I was trying to kind of think through teams that like could potentially give, Duke some problems that they could theoretically see. Like maybe there's a group like a BYU. I don't know if I'd necessarily really sign up for that because that team can make 15, 16 threes. Like maybe that could be a team like you don't necessarily want to see super, super early, but you're going to play good teams and Duke is battle tested and ready to roll. And we saw that in non-conference play. And I'm fully expecting them to go on a run. I would be pretty surprised if this group doesn't win 3 or 4 in a row in March Madness. Yeah,
let's make it happen. That's what we all want to see. So with that being said, it's such a busy time of year. The internet's going crazy, talking college basketball all the time. Your stuff is blowing up this time of year, Isaac, and rightfully so. Tell me a little bit about that and how people can support your work, man.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Isaac_Trotter. Most of my stuff's on CBSSports.com right now, but also you can check out 24/7 Sports for really good stuff. I mean, the portal's here, so like a lot of guys are entering the portal or saying they're going to enter, so we'll have lots of stuff there. My latest piece is just talking about like 10 teams, like some of the personnel that they've struggled with this year and what teams they might want to see or might not want to see in March Madness. So that's always good stuff, and we'll have a ton of Duke-related content, I'm sure, in the next couple of weeks as they're one of the stories of college basketball.
Let's do this again soon. Always good to see you, Isaac, all right?
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Isaac Trotter joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Always good to see him. And that's going to do it for our show here today, talking all things Duke basketball. Really do appreciate Isaac taking time to join us. Be sure that you follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.